Um, if we move to the next topic, Tom, because which is systems and processes, right? You're an engineer and you've run a nuclear power plant before, so you know a thing or two about systems and processes. You mentioned in another podcast that without those systems, right, um, you and your team wouldn't been able to do the 50,000 plus interviews that you've done. So let's talk a little bit about this, and teach the audience or share with the audience valuable lessons, because like you said, without systems and processes, you cannot be optimal, right? You're always suboptimal. Like for example, poor communication in the business. There might be a deadline missed. There might be a podcast interview missed, right? Um, you see people working long hours because of that, um, and most importantly, working too much and not making enough money, right? So let's talk about this.
So I want to start it off with the challenge, right? I believe that, I don't know, 98% of the world out there wants to do a good job, right? 98% of your employees want to do a great job. There might be a couple of psychos in there, but by and large, they want to do great things for you. So when problems happen, don't blame the people, right? I always look at it first and say, was it a system problem? What is a communication problem? Or was it a people problem? And usually in that order. And it never gets to the people problem, right? Because the system wasn't clear, the communication wasn't clear. And with that, you can solve the problem so it doesn't happen again, right? If you just blame it on crazy people, well, guess what? The next person's going to be just as crazy without that. So you want to set up a system, a culture that allows highly talented people to come in and run it. And let me give you an example. We talked about nuclear power. I'm always amazed when I hear people say, well, you don't understand my business, right? My business is so complicated that I could never systematize it. I could never do this, right? Right now, the average person in the Navy that is running a nuclear power plant is 21 years old. They're high school educated, right? They are very bright people, great culture. They do it, reproducibly with excellence and safety. If they had started that program and said, okay, we're going to need to get PhDs in nuclear physics in order to do this, how many reactors could they have run, right? It'd probably be, a handful, right? So they had to make it a system. They had to do the education and everything. And if you're looking long term, that's something to look at there. So as you're doing things, if you don't want to do them forever, you better start writing them down, right? And ask other people, as I write down what I'm doing, right? Then I ask them, can you do this too? And they'll come back and you skip steps. Oh, yeah. And so we have gotten a culture over the last 9 years of continuous improvement. And we use a system called Suite Process. It's originally we were just on like Google Drive, right? Mm-hmm. And all of the manuals were there and we could never find them. So Suite Process allowed us to organize it a lot more. But we check the manuals continually because every time we have new people start, right, they've got to go through that. And before we teach them how to do it, right, it's like, figure out how to do it in the manual, right? And they'll point out things, well, this isn't really clear, or, this has changed since this last time that was written. So we're always getting better because, another thing in the military is one is none, right? If there's one guy that knows how to use the radio, you're in big trouble, right? Because if something happens to him, you don't have a radio anymore. So we're always cross-training. We're always trying to think of how we can improve that. And sometimes like during slow periods. So podcasting typically slows down a little bit in the summer. And then at the year-end holidays, right? So we always use those times to cross-train. So if somebody's a client account manager, maybe they shadow a podcast relationship manager or vice versa, so that they can see what they do, they can learn from it, and have those questions